Picture this. You've just sat down for breakfast. You've got a great meal in front of you, but you can't even enjoy it because you're already stressing about what you're going to have for dinner. Has that ever happened to you? It certainly happened to me before. Uh,
Hey everyone, this is Aaron and Juwan, and you're listening to Wellness for Real People. This show is for people who are on the go, busy, and looking for ways to live their best lives. We focus on wellness topics in mindfulness, exercise, diet, and sleep, and share quick, actionable tactics to improve your health and wellness. We're not perfect, but we're trying to get a little better each day. Let's grow on this journey together.
Sure. So today we're talking about a very interesting uh, topic. It's called food noise. If you haven't heard that term yet, we're gonna get very familiar with it. It's something that's been popping up quite often lately, and so we're gonna dive deep into this idea, this subject of food noise. What is it? Does it impact you? And if it does, what can you do about it? We got another great article from Harvard Health that we're going to be discussing today. My name is Juwan. I'm here with my co-host Aaron, and this is another episode of Wellness for Real People. So welcome back. So, Aaron, before we dive deep into everything about food noise, what were just some of your initial thoughts when you read through the article?
Yeah, you called it out. The big one is I had never heard of it until you showed me this. So it's like one of the amazing benefits of this show is I get to learn a ton of stuff alongside with you, and that's alongside our listeners as well too. Um, and just seeing some of the stuff that has been around, like a term that's been around. There's like not an official scientific term, but it has been talked about quite a bit for a while. It just hadn't popped up on my radar. But then I started reading the article. I'm like, oh yeah, I can definitely see myself experience a lot of the things that the article talked about. So excited to dive into this one with you and our listeners and maybe get some benefit from that as well.
Great. Well, let's dive right into it. What exactly is food noise? So, the article from Harvard Health it's titled "Understanding Food Noise and How to Turn Down the Volume." The author says, whatever food noise, quote unquote, may look like for you, it's long been recognized as an issue for many of people who struggle with managing their weight or who want to be healthier. And while it's not necessarily like as you mentioned, Aaron, a specific scientific term, it is growing, in the lexicon, and it may turn into one day. But a 2025 report defined food noise as persistent thoughts about food that a person perceives as either unwanted or distressing, and that can cause social, mental, or physical problems. So I think that's a very important distinction. We all think about food. We have to. Well, most of us think about food. I won't put everybody in a bucket, but we most of us mere mortals think about food. Throughout the day. There's an abundance of it in our society, and the commercials about it all the time, and all sorts of things. And from time to time, of course, we get hungry. So it's
Yep.
normal to spend some time thinking about food and thinking about trying to eat and trying to be more healthy. Often means putting even more thought into your meal planning or your shopping or your cooking. So just because you're thinking about food throughout the day is not necessarily an issue. I think the big distinction is that piece of, is it unwanted? Is it distressing? And is it causing you problems?
Yeah, and I think that was the biggest call out for me was that the more intention you put behind being clear and focused on your food and what you're putting into your diet, the less food noise creeps in, which is kind of interesting to me because you would think it'd be the opposite where you're just constantly, like trying to figure out and tweak this thing, but it's actually more beneficial to just kind of figure things out for yourself ahead of time to try to turn down the noise a little bit. And I think
Mhm.
the article does a good job of talking about that. We'll get into that. I'll let you jump on to the next topic.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a good point. We'll definitely dive into some of those specific tactics and ideas that can help calm that noise down. Um, but I wanted to bring up a quote from the article that I thought was very helpful. This Vivian Fornasaro Donahue, who is a registered dietitian with a Harvard affiliated Massachusetts General Hospital. That was a whole mouthful.
Man, that's a lot.
Anyway,
That's a lot to say.
anyways, Vivian
Yes.
says that if your food thoughts are causing you distress or getting in the way of living your life, then that becomes food noise. So I think that's really really important. There's a line where it can kind of cross where it becomes counterproductive destructive, harmful to you, and that's where we want to be mindful of it. So um, another quote that I thought was really interesting was this idea. She said, when you limit food, your body perceives there's a scarcity where there was an abundance before. And so it adapts by amping up this food noise to encourage you to seek out food. She says that, research suggests the more times people diet and restrict, the wiser the body gets at making this adaptation. So I thought that was really, really interesting and really, really powerful. This idea of, like, when we get on these kind of very strict and rigid diets, how we kind of have this yo-yo or bounce back effect, which I've
Mhm.
certainly experienced or felt before. But having some language to explain that or express that, I found that was really, really powerful.
No, I agree, man. And that's the thing was like also the scarcity mindset of like trying to like manually restrict yourself often led me to having like huge turnarounds in terms of like, okay, I wasn't eating in the morning, but then I'm overeating at night, or whatever that ends up looking like, where I'm just ravenous at that point in time. And so um and throughout the day, now that I understand what food noise is, it got louder and louder where I'm thinking about bad food. And the worst part is sometimes we would even have leftovers or things, at home to eat. And all I could think about all day was like, oh man, once I get out of here, I'm gonna go and get like, a 6-piece chicken tender or something crazy, just like the largest size, give me the fries and everything, just horrible. But it was because I was trying to practice those, very restrictive dieting methods and was just having all kind of problems with that. So that did not work out for me.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's true, man. It's true. And I think that goes back to what we try to promote on the show is, right, this idea of, like, a balanced lifestyle, right? Not being too rigid or restrictive, in any one area, but being mindful across the board about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And trying to do things in moderation. And we'll talk about several strategies that I thought were really interesting from the article around how to quiet the food noise, right? How do we turn down the volume? So you brought this up, that first point, right? Eating regular, balanced meals. I don't think there's much more we can add to that. I think just your own personal story and testimony was really, really powerful about that. But one point about what you eat when you do eat those balanced meals, I thought was really important. The author says, try to make sure that you prioritize having some protein and fiber with each meal, because both of those things take more time for your body to digest. It can help you feel full longer. So kind of keeping those hunger fueled food thoughts at bay.
Yeah, and then the next one is one we've talked about last episode was practice mindful eating techniques and really trying to eat more with like intention, enjoying the food in front of you, thinking about your body signals. These things can also help tune out the chatter so you're not just kind of plowing through the meal and thinking about the next thing. So the experts say sit down to eat your meal rather than trying to eat it on the go or eat standing. Minimize distractions like phone, TV, etc., so that you can give your the act of eating your full attention, and then chew thoroughly. Put your fork down between bites. That was the biggest one from the last time we talked about mindful eating as well. Is just putting your fork down, because that act alone kind of just changes the whole thing, where you're just actually stepping back and thinking about it. Like, okay, let me just enjoy this meal versus like just constantly moving and just being in a kind of an autopilot. But yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it's crazy that these things come up over and over and over again in so many different ways, unrelated to the articles that we're discussing. So I just find that fascinating when we can revisit some of these interesting and helpful tips that we've explored in previous episodes and previous articles. The next one they talk about is manage your stressors by prioritizing sleep and exercise. This interesting connection between, these hunger cues or this food noise and sleep and exercise. I thought it's really, really fascinating. Um, there's a quote in the article that says it's very hard to care for yourself when you're stressed out and exhausted.
Yeah.
And ongoing stress can also trigger your body to release more cortisol, which is a hormone that can boost your appetite and kind of spur stress eating. So making that food noise more difficult to manage. So to try to make the stress feel more manageable, focus on getting enough sleep, which is something we talk about quite a bit on this show. One of the pillars of our show. Yeah, it just helps keep our hormones and our energy levels and stress levels at bay and in a more balanced state. So try at your best to keep a regular bedtime and a regular wake time, and aim for about 30 minutes of activity on most days of the week.
Yeah. And then the article also recommends taking a step back from the chatter. So when you feel those thoughts coming on, that food noise starting to perk up, this one is time for you to take a deep breath and step away. Notice and observe it, which we all talk about in a lot of the mindfulness, but just also acknowledge that you don't have to engage with it. Think of the feeling like a cloud moving across the sky and then let it pass is what they recommend. It's the ability to resist engaging with those thoughts that takes a lot of time and practice. As we know, with a lot of the things we discuss, it takes practice. That's just all it is. It takes repetition, and before you know it, it becomes a habit. But if you listen to this episode and think that you're going to change immediately, it's just not the case. And something that I'm working on personally all the time, and being on this show helps me to keep these things front and focus, is that we got to always kind of figure out that the chatter and the noise is going to come back in, but the practice is what's going to help us to be better when those moments happen, because it's always coming. You can't stop it completely.
Absolutely, absolutely. Great point. So the last piece here is, get help if you need it. If you find yourself really struggling with this, consider sharing with your doctor or another qualified healthcare professional that can maybe connect you with the right specialist. Sometimes they say multidisciplinary approach that includes nutrition, exercise, stress, sleep, and behavioral counseling, and sometimes even medication can make a big positive difference. So there's no one size fits all, like we always talk about, solution when it comes to food noise, but there are a lot of tools and opportunities and ways that we can manage it. So that's really it from the article. It's pretty short but sweet. We'll link to it in the show notes. But hopefully this was helpful if you're watching this or listening to this particular episode. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up, Aaron?
No, man, we're in good shape here. Just looking forward to the next one. We'll see you all soon.
All right, take care.